Instead of because the first day you have to own it. So we're going to talk a little bit more later. Maybe when some other people will be on, we'll have them also hear about this point more because it's the halachic ramifications regarding this law. Because let's say you come to synagogue with your grandson, right, and your grandson doesn't have a lulav etrog. You want to give him your lulav etrog. So we're going to talk more about this halacha. Now, okay, so we're on Memvav of a base, the top of the page. Oma Rav Zera. Rav Zera says the following law. Lolema inish li'enuka. A person shouldn't say to a child, you know what? The avina lachmidi. I'm going to give you something, right? What does a person say to a child? I'm going to give you a special treat. If you go ahead and you do something good, I'm going to give you a special treat, right? And then what happens is you don't give them the special treat. If you promise something to a child, and now if the truth is, anytime you say anything to anybody, you're supposed to keep your word. But here the Rav Zera is saying, if you back out, and the truth of the matter is, you know, there is if I say I'm going to give you a gift, I'm going to give you something. Technically, I have a right to back out from what I said I'm going to give to you, right? I decided not to do it. But maybe here there's an emphasis that you're teaching children to lie. Because children, when they see that you go ahead and you see between you and me, if I say, Adam, I'm gonna give you a safer, and then I decided that I need to keep the safe for myself. Now, really, it's not a nice thing, you know. But you'll be understanding, Rabbi. Maybe the Rabbi realized he needed the safer for himself. Therefore, the Rabbi, he offered the safer, but okay. But a child doesn't have that level of understanding that maybe the reason why you backed out, what? Under our mitzvah, let's say. But here, this is independent law. This is another law of Zera, not connected to Sukkah. This is a general life lesson, is that when you deal with children, you have to be very careful not to ever say something that you're going to do for them and not come through with it. I would say adults understand that you changed your mind. I'm going to take you to the game, and I'm going to drive you to the game, and then decide I'm not going to the game. You understand? I said we're going to go to the game, and I backed out of going to the game, right? But when you tell a child such a thing like that, it stays with him, and and you know what? And the child might just see that, and that will be a very negative model for him. Mishum, we want to welcome Adam Sassoon. Shum the osi like murei shikra. You're teaching a child to lie. Adam, we just said, Zera says you got to be very careful not to say to a child, I'm going to give you something as a gift, and then you don't come through with the gift. Because you're going to teaching the child to lie. And this was one of the things that caused the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. One of the things that caused the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash was the not lack of honesty. Well, as the pasuk says, "Limdu l'shonam dabe sheker." They taught their tongues to speak false. There was a lack of honesty, and that's something we've got to be extra careful about. Now, even if you're not hurting anybody, you didn't really hurt somebody. It's not like you lied to somebody, and as a result of that, you told the person that, you know what, I'm selling you this suit for $200. It cost me $175. I'm only making 25 on the deal. And really, the guy wouldn't pay it, but you lied to him, and therefore he paid the price. You gave him so that's you really hurt somebody. But here we're saying that even if you didn't hurt anybody, because you are, in general, we find the concept you're training yourself to lie, and And that also will also have ramifications that it will cause you to lie, that the lying doesn't stop when there's no ramifications. The lying will continue when there's ramifications to other people. That is the general way this pasuk is interpreted. That limdu l'shon davasheker, that when you train yourself to talk bad, to talk false, you're going to talk false even when you at someone else's expense. But here we're saying another point, not about you, it's about the other people that are going to be influenced by your actions. Now, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Shavuot, a person has to be very careful, young children, teaching the young children to talk emet. You have to be so careful, and that's a big thing. I remember, I think, hearing the name of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, one of the great Ashkenazic rabbis from the 1970s, 60s, and 80s. He passed away around 86. That was one of the things that he would be very, very makpid, very particular about with children, is when you see children lie. There's certain things children do. You could look the other way. You don't have to, you could discipline, but you could, the level of discipline or how strong you are or how much you make a big deal about something. But when it came to, I think, lying, not being honest, that was something that he made him extra focus. You gotta make sure the kids, when they're young, gotta make sure that they don't say anything. They're honest. You gotta train the kids. You only say the truth, and how important it is. Same way you will train children. Don't put your hand near a fire. Don't get close, or don't run across the street. You'll make a big deal about the physical safety of a child. If he's going right at him, so if a child wants to put a hand near a fire or run across the street, the parent is going to give it to him. Not going to be, okay, don't run across the street. It's not going to be that way. That's the same thing when it comes to child being honest. Start them off, that they should be honest. Now, so let's continue in the Gemara. Now the Gemara goes back to the old dispute that we had. The argument that we have here, Rabbi Yochanan Shimon Lakish, is the same argument of other rabbis. What was the argument that we had? The argument was a lulav. When you take the lulav on Sukkot, we said you have an etrog lulav. Usually, you use it for 7 days. So when you finish using the lulav on day 7 in the morning, can you make etrog jelly? Can you use that lulav for fuel for your fire in the afternoon? Or you have to wait till the day is over? That was a machloket we had in Rabbi Yochanan said, you cannot, since during this day, the 7th day was used for mitzvah, the whole day is part of, you can't use it for any personal use the whole day. And Rabbi Shloka says, because we know that once you finish the mitzvah in the morning, you could use it right away. So the Gemara said we have another machloket with other rabbis, and we're going to see that now we're going to line, as my father-in-law, Rabbi London, used to say, line up the men. We're going to line up the different rabbis, whose side is on who, and then we'll be able to establish who the law, the halacha follows. So the itma, shehifrish shiva etrogim, someone who separated 7 etrogim, an etrog for every day of the holiday, not bad. This man, I presume, he's a wheeler and dealer in etrogim, or he sells etrogim, I would speculate. Morning Morris, he sells etrogim, and as a result of selling the etrogim, he has a lot of etrogim, and he decided, you know what I'm going to do? Every day of the holiday, I'm just giving you a scenario. I'm going to use a new etrog every day. I think there are people that might use new aravot every day. For the lulav, they want to have fresh aravot every day, right? That's much less expensive. So here we have a different case that you're going to use a different etrog every day. Morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
So the Gemara brings a person separated 7 etrogim for 7 days. How do you like that, Mark? Every day a new etrog for the holiday of Sukkot. So he separated 7 etrogim, and for Shiva Yomim, for 7 days. Now the question is, let's say day 1. He finished using the etrog in the morning of day one. Can he go ahead and use that etrog that he used day one? He designated only for one day because he's only every day he's going to be using a different etrog. So here we have the phenomenon. When he Adam, Mark, I think you've had an influence on Adam that he's not today. He walks to the synagogue, zooming into the class. He doesn't just come to the class. He doesn't want to. He wants to get the class on the run while
Me
he's on the
too.
way. How do you like that? Not to miss out. Okay.
Beautiful.
By the way, that's called Velechtecha Baderech. We say in the Kriyat Shema to learn Torah when you travel.
Exactly.
To
On the
mark
road.
fulfill the mitzvah Velechtecha Baderech. That when you travel, and we as we all know, today's day and age, we live in such a society that people are traveling all the time. So we very easy. We have to make sure we fulfill the mitzvah Velechtecha Baderech. So we have a situation. A guy separated 7 etrogim. You hear that, Adam? For 7 days. So Rav Omar, Kol Achat VaAchat Yotziba, every etrog, every day, you go ahead and you do the mitzvah of that etrog, and right after you finish the mitzvah of the etrog, you can eat that etrog right away. That's like Rish Lakish. You finished because you only needed the etrog for the mitzvah. You did the mitzvah in the morning. Go ahead in the afternoon. Take that etrog. It's a holy etrog. You did a mitzvah with it, and now I'm going to go use it for something else. By the way, I think Rabbi Vada Yosef was very well known. I think that women who were having difficulty having children, if I recall correctly, you can look up the story. After the holiday, they would use the etrogim that he used. I think maybe he would give out etrog jelly or certain things, and it was a very big skula for women to have children. What I recall, something like that. You ever heard about that? You didn't hear about that. And I recall what made an impression. I mean, why do I remember that so well? Something like that is because towards the end of his life, when he was, what I recall, maybe when he was sick, like that was one of the things that he wanted to make sure that he would that he did. That he did even in such a state or whatever it was. I remember there was something unique about this that he went ahead and towards the end of his life, this was on his mind to make sure that the women will will be able to get from it in order to help them be a skula to have children. Now, so Kol echad ve'echad yosef v'ochlad. Rav Asi Rav Asi says no. Rav Asi says Kol achat ve'achat yosef, but use every day a different etrog, but ochla ad lemacha. You only can eat it tomorrow. You have to wait. You have to wait till tomorrow. What's the argument? So the Gemara says it's the same argument that we said before. The designation of the item is specifically for the time of the mitzvah. Once I did a mitzvah in the morning, I could use it in the afternoon. However, Masava, the other one holds that the lekula yoma is kasoi. I am designating it for the whole day because technically the mitzvah is the whole day. It happens to be that I am doing the mitzvah in the morning, but the time of the mitzvah etrog is technically the whole day. So this etrog is designated for that whole day. Therefore, I cannot use this etrog right away. I have to wait till the day is over. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. Now, the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan that the etrog would be forbidden day 7, the whole day 7. Not just you can't eat it in the afternoon right after you finish the mitzvah in the morning. The whole day 7 it is forbidden, and it's permitted on day. It's permitted the 8th day, and that's the general rule. When there's an argument of Yochanan Rish Lakish, the law follows Rabbi Yochanan, and also we have Rav. Here we have Rav. We have Rav and Rav Asi, and we have Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan go the same way. So halacha follows that opinion. Now that we said that the etrog is permitted on day 8, that's good morning, Aaron. Rabbi Yochanan was the big rabbi in the Holy Land. He was the chief rabbi, I would say like the chief rabbi, so to speak, the great rabbi of the time, the Rabbi Vada Yosef of the time in the land of Israel. Okay. So now the question is, that would be in the Holy Land. What about outside the Holy Land? Where we would have 2 days of the holiday out of doubt. So not so what would be the halacha regarding God bless you regarding the etrog? Now, okay. So we're gonna see about that. So Chutz Rabbi Yochanan, do we say in Chutz La'aretz the same law would apply that on the eighth day the etrog? Let's see what the Gemara says. Anan the Islay trade yami. We have 2 days of holiday. Heichi avdinan. But what do we do regarding the etrog? So Amar Abaye says, Shmini Safek Shvi, the eighth day, which is a possibility that it's the seventh day of the holiday. So what would we do? We would go ahead and assume you can't eat it because it's still that etrog is designated for the whole holiday. Day eight is also the eighth was a question. Today we don't have a question. We know that day eight is not technically the holiday, except to continue the custom that it was a time period they didn't know. So therefore, we do certain things. We sit in a sukkah. We have a second day of holiday. But in those days when they didn't know, so the same thing should apply. So he says, Abaye says, Shmini Suffolk Shvi, the eighth day, where it might be the seventh day. So when you designated the etrog, you designated the etrog for the duration of the mitzvah. And since it might be the mitzvah on day eight, so you would go ahead and you would go ahead and it would be forbidden for you to use for personal use on day eight until day eight is over. But day nine, you would definitely be able to use that etrog. She but the ninth day, which is suffix shmini, but the ninth day, which might be the eighth day, so then it's mutar. Then it's definitely permitted because ninth day, that might be the eighth day. It's definitely not the holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot is a 7-day holiday. So the eighth day, outside of Israel, the eighth day might be the seventh day. Okay, therefore it'll be forbidden on the eighth day. But the ninth day is only either the ninth or the eighth. Therefore, definitely could use it on that. What do you say? But maybe the chiddush is maybe because of the chiddush of in contrast to the next rabbi. Merema Amar afilu shmini safek shvi'i mutar. He says that you do not. It would not be forbidden for the whole eighth day. It would be there'll be a leniency right after you use the etrog in the morning. He makes that leniency. What's the reason? Right, but right. So the question is, what? Very good. You want to say because the Safed Rabban and the Kula, but let's see let's see what's the reason for this leniency. We have meaning the eighth day, suffix shmini. He says it's permitted. Look at note. I mean, he says because they did not use the etrog on that day, meaning to say, like the way Adam said, it would seem that it would be. Remember that taking the lulav and the etrog on between day 2 and day 7 was a rabbinic mitzvah. Correct? Day 2 and day 7 is a rabbinic mitzvah because the mitzvah on a Torah level is only the first day. Day 2 to day 7 is to remember what they took it in the mikdash. Now on day 8, when day 8 is a safek, if it's day 8 or day 7, so that will be so it's a safek d'Rabbanan. it's a suffix in a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Do I have a rabbinic mitzvah on day 8 to take the go-ahead and the lulav, or I don't have a mitzvah on day 8? So even in the time before they had the set calendar, before we today have a set calendar, right? But even the time they didn't have a set calendar, they didn't know if today was day 7, day 8, or today is day 7, right? So you don't. It's a safek. If it's day 8, you don't have the mitzvah to take the etrog. If it's day 7, you have a mitzvah, but that mitzvah day 7 will be rabbinic. So safek the rabbanan lekula, they will not need to take. It would seem that they did not need to take the etrog on day 8. And that could explain why we sit in the sukkah. Mark, you had asked, we sit in the sukkah, Shmini Atzeret, because sitting in a sukkah is a biblical mitzvah if you're going to have a meal. So they had to, when they didn't know if today is day 8 or day 7, they had to sit in the sukkah on day 8 because they weren't sure if day 8 or day 7. And it's a biblical violation if you eat any time of the holiday of Sukkot. There's no difference between day 1 and day 7 regarding the obligation of Sukkah. The only difference is that day 1, the night of day 1, you have to go ahead and find yourself and have a meal in the Sukkah. But anytime, good morning, anytime during the holiday of Sukkot that you're going to have a meal, that meal must be in the Sukkah. If you're going to have bread and you're going to have at least an egg of bread, more than an egg of bread, you would have to find yourself in a Sukkah. Right, Aaron? I mean, people have to realize you can't have bread outside the Sukkah anytime. It's a biblical mitzvah. So therefore, they had to sit in the Sukkah on day 8. But on day, when they weren't sure if it was day 8 or day 7. But when they weren't sure if it's day 8 or day 7, they did not need to take the lulav.
They didn't know, they weren't sure.
And so they were sure in Eretz Yisrael, they did not take the etrog at all on day 8. You're right. In day 8 in Eretz Yisrael, everybody, you can use the etrog right away because no one's using it. It's not for mitzvah, day 8. You don't sit in the sukkah, nothing. Outside of Israel, where there was a question whether today is day 8 or day 7, out of question, they would sit in the sukkah on day 8. But they did not need to take the lulav and etrog on day 8 out of question. But the whole taking of lulav is a rabbinic. And it's a safek and a rabbinic law. So safek rabbanan l'kula. So therefore, that's why what could come out. No, don't eat. Right. Right. The answer is that rabbi holds that. But again, the first of Ben Hashmashot of that next day already was the mitzvah could have been done at that time. Let's say day 7, the Gemara before we say, meaning Adam is saying there were 3 opinions in the Gemara before in the land of Israel. In the land of Israel, there were 3 opinions. What were the 3 opinions? One opinion is right after you finish the mitzvah in the morning of day 7 of the etrog, you can go ahead and make your etrog jelly right away. Second opinion, you have to wait to the end of the day. After the day is over, at the day 8, you can make that. You can have it at night. At night, you can already make your etrog jelly. Well, with day 8. And there's another opinion that says you can't even do it on day 8. Why? Because that opinion would hold, I would say, is because day 7, if let's say you did not take the etrog on day 7, and it became Ben Hashmashot, it became twilight. Even though you're not obligated to take the etrog now, because it's a rabbinic law and it's a safek if I have the mitzvah now. Because now it might be day 8, but I have a right to take it. It's not like I'm doing something because maybe it is day 7 still. You know, you would when it's day 8 for sure. I don't have. There's no mitzvah right. But since I'm still there's still a connection to the mitzvah. To me, and that's the beginning of day 8, or that's Ben Hashmashot. So he would say the same way on Shabbat. There's a law on Shabbat. If you have something that was muksah when Shabbat came, let's say you had on the table, you had money on the table during the twilight. When Shabbat came, you didn't get the money off the table before Shabbat. So then the table is holding the money. So the table becomes mukseh because the thing that supports the mukseh becomes like the mukseh itself. And what do you say? even if, again, as long as you don't move the table. Mukseh is no, as long as you don't move the mukseh, right? If someone has a television and he puts something on top of the television, say that's not an issue. But if you go ahead and you're moving the television, that will be the issue. To make the so right, but even if the item is out of the way, let's say I went ahead and I knocked the money off with my hand, with my elbow. So that I was able to do. But the table, since when the Shabbat came, the table wasn't. Yes, yes. That's why. That's why what we do is the money is gone. Because the table, when it came Shabbat, it was holding the mukseh. It became a basis. It was supporting the mukseh. Right. So I'm saying so, but so we say once the beginning, it was exactly. You could use it, you can't move it. Right. So that's the story with the. So what do? We put challah on the table before Shabbat. So when you have a table and you light the candles on the table, if you have challah on the table, so therefore the table is not only supporting the candles, the table is also supporting the what? The challah. And therefore we say that the table does not become muksa as a result of that. And therefore, when the lights go out, if the lights go off, when the lights go off of the candles, then you can move the table. But the table was holding mukseh and non-mukseh, and we consider the challah we consider that the fact that it's holding the challah, that will stop the table from becoming mukseh. That's the rule. Let's say you have a drawer, and a drawer, you have money in the drawer, and you have other things in the drawer. So we say the drawer. Now it depends. What's more important? The mukseh. If you have a nickel in the drawer, and you have a diamond bracelet in the drawer, the diamond bracelet is not mukseh. So the drawer is supporting mukseh and not mukseh, and the non-mukseh is more important than the mukseh. So the drawer is really, we don't say the drawer becomes mukseh because it's supporting mukseh, non-mukseh, and the non-mukseh is more important than the mukseh. So therefore the drawer, but if let's say you have a drawer and the mukseh is more significant than the non-mukseh, then you can't open that drawer. But that drawer, you're moving the drawer. The item that supports the mukseh takes on the status of the mukseh itself. Whatever that mukseh is, that is saying, you can't move mukseh, and you can't move money in your home, even though you're not carrying, but you can't move it. You can't. So you can't move it from one place. Now there are certain leniencies. Right, but there's certain things that a hammer, like Mark said, the hammer is mukseh, but there's certain leniencies that we have. That certain mukseh, if you need the place, you have a right to move it. A hammer, technically, if you left the hammer on the table became mukseh. You don't move the table, but you could use the table, but you can actually move the hammer because if you need the table. You can use it to open up and crack a walnut with the hammer. It is mukseh, but it's a mukseh that's allowed to be used for if you need the hammer for a permitted use. But it's still mukseh. If I'm not using it for a walnut, I want to move the hammer away from the shade. I don't want my hammer to change colors. I can't move the hammer just because I want it not to be in the shade. But if I want to move the hammer because it's in my way, I need the place, I'm allowed to move the hammer. Money is a higher level mukseh than a utensil. A utensil, we have a right to move it because we need the place, or we need to use that utensil in a permitted fashion. Like Adam is saying, I want to use the hammer to crack open a nut. Crack open a nut is a permitted action. Opinions. So the three opinions regarding, so I'm just suggesting that maybe Adam was bothered, I think, by the third opinion that went so far to say in the land of Israel, even though the land like it's only a 7-day holiday, there's an opinion that says you can't use the etrog on day 8. And right now we're talking about outside of Israel. So Abaye says outside of Israel, you can't use it on day. So outside, good morning, good to see you. Okay, tov. So outside of Israel, we're not taking the etrog on day 8. but technically, it's really the time. We don't take it out of Safek the Rabbanan, but it's still the time of the mitzvah because it's still out of Safek. It is connected to the mitzvah. So, but Merema Ama, Merema says, let's see, 1 second. Merema says, Afilu Shmini Safek Shvi'i Muta. And Merema says, even day 8, which is a question of the 7th day, it is mutar. Meaning, let's say outside of Israel, on day 8. So day 8, so you would have said day 8, since it's a safek, that it might be day 7. So you should go ahead and it should be forbidden for you to use it on day 8 as jam. But he says it's mutar. He says in the 8th day, it's permitted already. Why? Because since in practice we don't use the etrog on day 8. Let's say nowadays, do we use the etrog on day 8? We don't use the etrog on day 8. The sukkah we use. Therefore, you can't use the sukkah for firewood on day 8. But the etrog that we don't use, he holds you could use it for personal use on day 8.
About what day it was.
Oh, very good. Right. It's because the communication didn't reach. It didn't reach. The messages in Israel, they sent the messages out. But if you live far away from Israel, there was no internet, and therefore you got to go ahead and the guy has to arrive on the horse or on the donkey or the camel. Right. It wasn't the communication. And therefore, if you lived in Babylon, if you live, let's say, in Iraq, to get from Israel to Iraq might have taken more than 15. And also, remember, you had in between, you had days that they couldn't really get the word out too well, but you had Yom Kippur in between, you had a Shabbat in between. The people, you have different days that may be difficult for the messages to get moving, to get the word out. So therefore, by the time the 5th, the holiday came, they didn't know. So outside, so Abaye says the 8th day it was forbidden because there might be outside of Israel, right? Correct. And now the Gemara says, what was the practice? The Gemara says Basura is one of the famous cities in Babylon outside of Israel. Avdi Kimerema. They did like and they ate the etrog on the 8th day. They enjoyed the etrog on day 8. However, and Rav Shisha, Breder Rav Idi, Ovid Kabaye. He did Kabaye. He did not eat the etrog until the 9th day. That means Shmini Atzeret did not. That's what Abaye says. That here we don't eat. And the Mercer the Kabaye. And the halach, we don't make etrog jelly on the 8th day. And if you look now, what does Shulchan Aruch say? Tov Reish Samach Zayin. Let's see let's take a look at the Hilchot Kabaye. Do we have a letter over there? Hilchot Kabaye. So let's see. Aleph Shulchan Aruch Reish Samach Hey. It says like this. Etrog on the 7th day is forbidden because it's designated for the mitzvah all 7 days. And outside of Israel, in Israel, Shmini Atzeret is mutar to use the etrog, but outside of Israel, when we make 2 days of the holiday, you can't use the etrog for etrog gel even on day 8, and you could use it on day 9. So that's. He took it on the 7th day, but they did not make the jelly until the 9th day. Until Succah Torah. If she wanted to make it on Succah Torah, she can make it on Succah Torah. Okay, we should have Ravadi Yosef back, and he'll give out the jelly for the ladies to help them. Baruch Hashem, and we should always help all the women. Whatever we could do to help them, they should be able to have children, build families. Have a great day, everybody. Right, but we remember, but we still remember the custom. That was the custom that they did.
No way. And you have some opinions.
And it might be, no, there might be a Deraita mitzvah during the time that's designated for the mitzvah. It might be the right, not needed. Because there's a source, they bring a pasuk,